all day at work, they have the impeachment on the television sets. We have, I think it's like 4 or 5. I mean, it's literally a newsroom in the realest, strictest sense of the word. You only have to listen to a little bit of it to want to drill your eyeballs out and jam ink pens into your ears. I'm sitting here listening to a clip. And as I listen to the clip and as I sink into it, and I'm, kind of jotting down notes, and I feel myself getting angry as I listen to the clip, and I'm like, all right, let me just do the clip and let me just do the video before, I don't want to be unhinged as I do this video. So let's just explain it, why this is aggravating the shit out of me. Democrats have lost their goddamn minds. They've unhinged, unfucking hinged. And they're saying things that is making this look more and more like a soft coup. You don't believe me? I will play you 2 clips. One from massively unhinged. And the other one is Additive Shifts trying to explain, because people have presented this, making this point like an election is in a year. What the fuck are you doing? An election is in a year. What are you doing? If you're right, and this is this important, and the public cares this much about it, they're just so fired up they got to get rid of Trump, then why are you concerned? Why does this need to take place? If you full well believe that you're going to win because of how important this is, and clearly the public can see how important this is, if you believe that you're going to win handedly because of that, because of how important, because you've made your case about how bad and how horrible and how evil and how wicked Donald Trump is, then you shouldn't be scared of an election. Legitimacy is given through the fires of the public's will, i.e., an election. If you are taking a step to prevent the public from making that choice, I have to question, why are you taking that step? And in this case, Schiff is going to explain to you why it is unacceptable for the public to choose Donald Trump in this particular issue. Look, I'm just going to show you the clip, because it's extraordinary that the Democratic Party is out here making the argument that the public shouldn't be able to choose. Meaning, I am not a fan of Donald Trump at all. I have clear qualms about this. This is extraordinary. A Democratic Congress member is standing in the well of the Senate and is making the argument that, yeah, an election is going to be in a year, but this is not something that the public needs to be able to decide upon, because this is that grave and that important that we need to remove the president now. We can't leave this up to the public to make that choice. The president's misconduct cannot be decided at a ballot box, for we cannot be assured the vote will be fairly won. Think about what he's saying. We don't want the president to be involved in this. We don't want the public to get a choice. And the fact is, the public may choose that this shit doesn't matter. And in choosing that this doesn't matter, we can't take that chance. So we need to remove this sitting president right now. The wild part about this, you had the transcript, and what they don't have is your Mac, nor do they have anybody from the Ukraine agreeing to this. Meaning all of this is an assumption of Sunderland. The Ukrainians did not back him up on this. This is thin. This is thin. And Schiff, who's been caught lying on multiple occasions, is now standing in the Senate explaining to the American public that this is not a situation where you need to get a choice because this can't be decided at the ballot box. And then adds the extra thing because of how horrible that sounds. We can't let the American public get a choice because they may choose Trump again because of how horrible we are. We can't let them get that choice. That's extraordinary. Any party can say that, by the way. Any party can come out and say, yeah, we don't want the American public to be able to choose this particular person because we don't know if the election can be fair. You realize whether Trump is in the election or not, the same rules still apply. You're just trying to exclude him because even after all of this, You know what I know, that depending on who you choose as a candidate, he can still win. And if he still wins, it puts all of this as a sham with the American public that says, yeah, he might be corrupt, but we don't like you either. Impeachment. The Democrats have lost their minds. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal Patron. This may be an opinion that you may not necessarily agree with me on. I am not a fan of Trump in this at all, so don't misunderstand me. And I've been very clear from the standpoint of how I consider the political space, meaning this notion that we're in this weird space where each party is upping the ante in regards to how they behave. At one point, John Wayne, when John F. Kennedy won, he says, that's not my president, but I hope he does well. Some to that effect. Because at the very least, they had this idea that the party structure, even though they may compete, ultimately they're still competing under the umbrella and auspices of this U.S. government, this thing to which we organize ourselves around, and pushing and pulling and trying to get what we want politically. The Republican Party goes so far as to not do anything in order to assist Obama, meaning fuck the government. We just bringing it to a halt. And going so far as to not do their constitutional duty to allow him to choose his Supreme Court pick, making the argument at one point, we can let this down the line, because they assumed that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And in assuming she was going to win, they weren't going to let her get her Supreme Court pick either. Think about what that means. That is such a massive jump of the shark, where you don't care, you don't give a shit about the public, you don't give a shit about the public will, you don't give a shit about what's in the best interest of the public. But the key here is, for a long time that's been true. Maybe not to the point where it existed in the way that the parties would just rabidly go after one another, but definitely from the standpoint of the tone deafness of the political space, from the standpoint of the public itself. And now you get to this weird space where the public is out of touch. The public is not entirely paying attention. We don't even have to live up to our constitutional responsibilities. Fuck it. We're going to get a beer. Obama doesn't push this. Weak. Doesn't push it. And milquetoast Merrick Garland sits on the sidelines with his thumb in his ass, eventually being sent back home, not being put in. Trump wins. And they fill it to the degree they want to fill it. Because when Hillary Clinton lost 1,100 seats all throughout the United States, House, Senate, and yeah, presidency of the Supreme Court, up in smoke. The Democratic Party goes with this conspiracy theory of Trump and Russia, almost in retaliation for the last go-round with Obama. Now, the Trump and Russia thing was nonsense. It just was. And investigation after investigation, be it the IG or, for that matter, be it Mueller, their own guy, meaning they got what they want, and Mueller still didn't do the job for him. Mueller didn't give him the goods to get him out of office, which is what they wanted to do from day one. That's all they wanted to do. They've said it on more than one occasion. Multiple members of the party have said, I'm here to impeach this president, young man, throwing Michael Tracy out of the way. Or Rashid Tlaib, who I love, by the way, comes out and says, I told my kid I'm going to impeach this motherfucker. Congratulations, you got what you want. You've impeached the president. On the most whimsiest of fucking items. It's not that I think Trump should use the power of the presidency in order to try to get information on his opponent. By the way, the Democratic Party was working with the Ukrainian government to do just that against Donald Trump. Just saying. But it's not that I think the presidency in that sense should be used in those terms. It's more so that they were looking for anything to impeach him on. And they went with a conspiracy theory for 3 years and immediately rolled that conspiracy theory into this. They are saying unhinged things at this inquiry. Absolutely, completely, and entirely unhinged. That when you compare it to objective reality, they are out of their fucking gourds. The fact that any politician would stand up and argue that the American public should not get a choice in this, and that the fact that they may vote for the guy again, to my chagrin, by the way, but that they may vote for him again over your particular candidate and over all of this controversy and drama that's been going on for the last 4 years. The fact that they may vote for him again is too much for you, and you're arguing that we can't let them choose. Think about what that means. A political party is making the determination for you. They know better than you. We're going to make the choice for you. You can choose somebody else, just not him. Think of Lula, for fuck's sake. Using the Brazilian judiciary in order to take Lula out because they thought Lula had a chance of beating their guy. I understand Trump is an ogre. Fair enough. I don't like what Trump did here. Fair enough. But I hate to tell you this, Trump has done a lot worse shit than this. Stealing the oil in Syria is worse than this. The camps that he has at the border is worse than this. There's several things that are worse than this. This is Cold War hysteria wrapped up with this Trump-Russia nonsense that they didn't necessarily want to let die. The killing Soleimani. Assassination. Illegal by our laws. I guess I'm making the point there are items for which, and I hate to point this out, George Bush, like all of this to some degree gets invalidated because Nancy Pelosi, the same person who is Speaker of the House now, thought going after Bush, we don't see the point. Why? Because killing 1 million people, for them, wasn't bad enough for Nancy Pelosi. But this rises to the level of taking off the president. And yeah, not letting the public get a vote is a telltale sign of what is really going on. Listen to this. This is Schiff. A guy who's been caught lying on multiple accounts. Listen to what he says here. This is 3 minutes.
The president ordered the entire executive branch of the United States of America to categorically refuse and completely obstruct the House's impeachment investigation. Such a wholesale obstruction of congressional impeachment has never before occurred in our democracy. And it represents one of the most blatant efforts at a cover-up in history. If not remedied by his conviction in the Senate and removal from office, President Trump's abuse of his office and obstruction of Congress will permanently alter the balance of power among the branches of government, inviting future presidents to operate as if they are also beyond the reach of accountability, congressional oversight, and the law. On the basis of this egregious misconduct, the House of Representatives returned 2 articles of impeachment against the president. First, charging that President Trump corruptly abused the powers of the presidency to solicit foreign interference in the upcoming presidential election for his personal political benefit. And second, that President Trump obstructed an impeachment inquiry into that abuse of power in order to cover up his misconduct. The House did not take this extraordinary step lightly.
No, you did. You did. And just that, I have to inject something else. Because as I watch this video, it aggravates the shit out of me. If your name is Donald Trump, and you get into office, and they have a conspiracy theory that runs with this notion of you working for the Russians, meaning Vladimir Putin is whispering in your ear to tell you what you should be doing. And you know that the intelligence services of this country was working against you, meaning the spying on Carter Page. Because that spying is not just on the person. It allows you to look at who that person is contacting. Meaning, for all intents and purposes, they were looking into his campaign. These are the same people that let Hillary Clinton walk in that last email scandal, where they would have put any of us who's watching this in prison. They would have put us under the prison for doing something like that. She walks. And the same people that let her walk are now on Trump's case. I guess my point is, if you know that you didn't get peed on by a hooker, if you know that Putin wasn't whispering in your ear, and yet media and the political space fused and ran with that as if it was flat fact reality. And then when they found out that they were wrong, no reflection. They just immediately pivot to obstruction. And then there's a leaker, and now we're on Ukraine. And despite Zelensky and Yermak, the two people who are in the Ukraine who would have known about this, saying it didn't happen. And Sunderland saying he presumed, here we are. Now, if you're the president of the United States that went through that, and by the way, Trump is an ogre, so don't misunderstand me. This is an issue of government to me. If this can happen to one, this can happen to anybody. In the same way that they're arguing that this, for the most part, allows a president to be X, this also allows an adversarial Congress. Do you think that after this shit, the Republican Party is going to let whatever other Democrat skate? No, they weren't necessarily going to let them skate, but you're going to end up with impeachment after impeachment after impeachment. You're talking about something that absolutely undermines your government. It's not just setting a precedent from the standpoint of the president. It's also setting a precedent from the standpoint of Congress. This is fucking horrendous. This is not entirely about Trump per se. To some degree, this is about the Democratic Party also because of what they're choosing to impeach him on. This is thin. This is thin. They don't impeach him on the national security stuff or the foreign policy stuff because they themselves could also be held accountable. The fact of the matter is, the moment that you say what Bush did, lying this country into a war, 4,000 Americans dying in that war, us still being in those countries 18 years later, the moment that you say, that's fine, we can't impeach that, that's like Mike Tyson biting off somebody's ear and the ref just saying, all right, I'm going to put you in timeout for a while. I mean, come on. If that doesn't rise to the level of impeachment, nothing does. And yet, here you are. Nancy Pelosi, same person who said George Bush wasn't worth impeachment, is now impeaching Trump. These guys are partisan hacks. This was an entirely partisan process. And he's up here arguing like, oh, you know, this is the worst thing ever. Yes, Trump is a fucking ogre. I agree with you that Trump is an ogre. Whether or not you should use the governmental system like this in order to drag him out of office. Oh, that's the second thing. You didn't have to go to impeachment. You could have went to a censure. Tulsi Gabbard was right on this. By the same token, what you did was, we got to take him out of office right now. You tried once before with one conspiracy theory, which shows the con. And then you immediately move to the other one with leakers. Do you know, where were all of these Democrats who so love whistleblowers during the Obama era? Where were all of these Democrats? I didn't know Democrats cared about whistleblowers until this particular term, this administration, because they didn't give a shit about whistleblowers until this administration. When Obama was locking up whistleblowers with the Espionage Act, no issue. None. No issue. But now you have all these leakers. And Democrats, we must protect the whistleblower. We must protect the whistleblower. I've had conversations with Democrats where they said, well, with Obama, it was different in a way. How? How was it different? Well, those guys didn't go through the proper channels. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? You're being serious? Yeah, I'm being serious. That's what somebody told me. I think Rachel Maddow told me that. I find this to be a sham. I'm sorry. And let me finish. I'm interrupting. And this is not the part that I entirely want to interrupt on. My basic point was, if you were the president who went through that, where they used the conspiracy theory to try to take you out of that office with various elements of the intelligence services, seemingly to try to want to help them, why would you trust anybody in this process? Schiff has lied. It's been an entirely partisan process going on in the House of Representatives, regardless of what the Democrats say. Why would you trust them? Why would you subject yourself or your staff to having any conversation with them? I would behave in the exact same way. Just saying.
As we will discuss, impeachment exists for cases in which the conduct of the president rises beyond mere policy disputes to be decided otherwise and without urgency at the ballot box. Instead, we are here today to consider a much more grave matter, and that is an attempt to use the powers of the presidency to cheat in an election. For precisely this reason, the president's misconduct cannot be decided at the ballot box, for we cannot be assured that the vote will be fairly won.
We cannot be assured that the vote will be fairly won. Interesting excuse. Hit and a miss. And fact of the matter is, maybe you shouldn't have even brought this up at all, because now you bring something to attention. Why shouldn't it be chosen at the ballot box? The election is in a year. In fact, less than a year. At the end of this year, we would know who is going to be president of the United States. You, as the Democratic Party, is saying he's corrupt, he's horrible, he's done a horrible job, he's a fuck up, he's an embarrassment. Fine. If you are right, then you should have no issue beating him. Why? Why is it so imperative for you to rip him out of office in this particular way? If he is what you say he is, and if your candidates are better, if your candidates at the very least could feed themselves, supposedly, he should be able to beat Trump. But that's the rub. You're scared that they can't. That's the catch. That's what all of this seems to be about. You just gave it away. Meaning, ultimately, you're trying to explain why at the end of this year, when there's going to be an election, you need to try to make an argument to people, something that legitimately makes sense for why you need to rip him out of office now, as opposed to letting the public decide. You've put all of this out. The public, more than anybody else, you've gotten all sorts of hate put out in the media space against Trump. And you've had it going for 4 years. And you're still concerned that you're going to lose. My point is, this loophole, this notion where you're going to try to rip the guy out of office, and now you're trying to explain why you believe it is imperative that the public not get a choice at all. We want to take him off the game board. Choose somebody else. But we want to take him off the game board. It comes across as if you're scared of this election. And you know what I know, that you could potentially lose this election despite all of the media, despite all of the news, all of these other people being on your side and almost full allegiance on how horrible Trump is. And you are still concerned that you could lose. You want to take him off the game board. That's what this is about. That's called a soft coup. When you have political parties that have decided that the American public shouldn't get a choice, that's literally what he just said. This cannot be decided at the ballot box. This is a big fucking deal. I don't give a shit who says it. One of the political parties in this country has just said, this election, this person, this can't be decided at the ballot box. We cannot let the public have a choice on whether or not this rises to the level of importance. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're right, then the public is, he's corrupt. We can't have him. We can't put him in office. If you are wrong, however, and that the public doesn't see this as rising to the level of this impeachable offense, because ultimately with impeachment, you're trying to rip him out of office. If he loses the election, he will be legitimately taken out of office. If you are right and the public agrees with you that this is indeed impeachable, then they would remove him themselves in the fires of an election. You are standing here looking into the camera, making the argument that the public should not get a choice. I want you to see how fucked up that is. Whatever your political ideology, whatever your party, whatever that is, this is a hair away from dictatorship. And not in the sense what he's talking about, where they're trying to say Trump is a dictator. Trump is an ogre. He's a horrible fucking person. But you have a Democrat standing here telling you shouldn't get a choice in the election. That is massively problematic for me. That should be massively problematic for you. I don't care what useful idiots think. Meaning, oh God, Trump is an ogre, so we will be okay with the removal of a particular president that we don't particularly like. And be okay with that particular argument of a Democrat saying, the public shouldn't get a choice. We don't want you to get this choice. We're going to take Lula off the game board. Listen to Nadler. This is the most unhinged shit I've heard today.
Is engaged in obstruction that several of his predecessors have expressly said is forbidden, and that led to an article of impeachment against Nixon. President Trump is an outlier. He is the first and only president ever to declare himself unaccountable and to ignore subpoenas backed by the Constitution's impeachment power.
Wouldn't that be handled in the courts? Think about what I'm saying for the moment. Wouldn't that be one of those things where the president is trying to be taken to court for X or for Y? I guess I'm saying they immediately, I know sometimes when they're looking at it, it makes you just seem this is the only thing that could take place. No, I'm sorry, this is not the only thing that could take place. This is what they chose. And they chose it on 2 items. And I suspect that the reason they didn't choose it among others is because they themselves could be held in contempt for it. When a Democrat gets in office, the last thing they're going to want to be done is be constrained by something that they did here. So let's look for the 2 flimsiest things we could try to get him out of office on.
If he is not removed from office, if he is permitted to defy the Congress entirely, categorically, to say that subpoenas from Congress in an impeachment inquiry are nonsense, then we will have lost, the House will have lost, the Senate certainly will have lost all power to hold any president accountable. This is a determination by President Trump that he wants to be all-powerful. He does not have to respect the Congress. He does not have to respect the representatives of the people. Only his will goes. He is a dictator. This must not stand.
Donald Trump is a dictator. All right, let's engage that. Let's engage that. At the moment, you're calling Donald Trump, the president of the United States, a dictator, who, by the way, you allow to be a king. Let's go there first. In the sense that you allow him to gallivant around the world, knocking over governments, assassinating various people in various countries, squatting in a country as an occupier, because Iraq is literally out there protesting for us to get the fuck out the country. And we ain't going nowhere. By definition, that's called an occupying force. But you allow that. You're okay with that. The bloodshed in Yemen, you're okay with that. You're okay with all sorts of atrocities. So you allow him to be a king. You've allowed the other presidents to be a king. The moment that Bush sets the precedent where he can get 1 million people killed, not to mention knocking over Iraq, Afghanistan, meaning something that probably should have been a police action turns into we're just going to blow the entire, the cops are looking for a burglar, so they're going to knock down the entire apartment building. My point is, the moment that you say it's okay for the president to lie, to mass surveillance, to torture, to repeal habeas corpus, the moment that you've agreed to that, your Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, agreed to that. Nancy Pelosi knew that Bush was full of shit. She said as much. Meaning, she understood that Bush was lying. And she still, but I thought it would be divisive to impeach. And that same person, though, who thought it was okay, all of those lives lost, that same person will now look you in the face and say, but this can't, we can't let this one stand. The dictator, who you're calling a dictator, is allowing himself to be impeached. So you're telling me that the dictator, the leader, has allowed himself to be investigated by Mueller, which literally could have taken him out of office if Mueller found anything, to endure this nonsense where you're in an impeachment hearing and to get impeached in the House of Representatives. Why didn't a dictator just abolish Congress? I mean, that's what other dictators do. When Hitler said, look, we're done with the Reichstag. This is the last election that we're ever going to have here for 100 years. He got rid of the Reichstag. He put them just as rubber stamps. You rubber stamp his war bills, meaning when he's keep raising the military budget, you rubber stamp that. But why not just get rid of Congress? Wouldn't that make this so much easier? Why not just abolish what you're doing right here? Because what you're doing is saying that the president is a dictator while you're impeaching the president. There is some chance, infinitesimal, 0.000% or something, that the Senate could remove him. That's never going to happen, but I'm just saying infinitesimally, yes, some probability, some reality where that takes place. But the fact that that could take place means he's not actually a dictator. You were closer to a dictatorship with George Bush than you were with Donald Trump. The reason I say that is, for as bad as Trump is, you have a divided House. And at one point with Bush, scratch that. I call those equal. Trump is different. but equal. Anytime you have right-wingers in power like that, you can end up in some kind of authoritarian dictatorship. But I guess my point is, the president, who you're saying is a dictator, is allowing himself to be impeached. He doesn't get rid of Congress. Why doesn't he get rid of media? I mean, media hates his fucking guts. Why not have CNN bombed, for that matter? I guess I'm asking you, is he's not doing dictator shit? What about getting rid of the judges that keep frustrating his plans when he's trying to get stuff done? Is he having members of Congress shot? Are they being dragged through the streets? I'm trying to understand what you're talking about. Because from my reading of history, the coming of the Third Reich, the German War, these type of books gets across this notion of what a dictator actually is. What you're talking about is out of touch with reality. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. This is utterly unhinged. Schiff believing, politically speaking, I would argue, that it is so important to get rid of Trump because of these two articles that the voters shouldn't get a choice, meaning fuck democracy. Adam Schiff, hashtag fuck democracy. Nadler comes out and saying the president that is being impeached, that has been investigated from the day that he got in office, that has all of these people in his entourage locked up, that has been called messing around with prostitutes or getting peed on by a hooker in Russia, that has been called a Vladimir Putin puppet, that has allowed the media to smear and attack him consistently. That dictator, who apparently has no powers to handle any of this stuff, but that guy's a dictator. This is unhinged. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And I have to be honest, this is worrying. One of the political parties has come out and literally said voters shouldn't get a choice. And the other guy is trying to make the argument that this guy's a dictator, so the public definitely shouldn't get that choice. What are you scared of? You have an election, less than a year. What are you scared of? If you are indeed right and you've presented your case sufficiently to the American public, for all you can, this could have been a censure. And you could have said, the public needs to remove this president and we're going to lay this information out. You don't want to do that. You're going through with an impeachment hearing, the most hyperbolic way and thing that you could think of, but that you were thinking of from day one. And in this hyperbolic pattern, in less than a year, the public gets a choice. If you're right, the public would remove him because he's that onerous. But if you're wrong, and this didn't rise to the level of impeachment, then they won't remove him and they will keep him in this office. And all of this would look utterly ridiculous. The public would have listened to all of your arguments and still found you wanting, especially in a comparison to whoever the candidate was that you put up that got beat. If you're scared, say you're scared. If you're scared, say you're scared. This is worrying. Just saying, this is worrying. This is continuing to escalate. Mikey Mike, the Russian Iranian bot. Remember the main George W. Schiff. Brooke Hines, you're right on, Jamal, 100%. Gray Curtis, but the Republican Senate won't vote him out right now. They're not going to vote him out. Maybe Bloomberg will buy. What is Bloomberg going to buy? No, the Republicans aren't going to vote him out. I'm just making the point that there is a potential for it. And again, if he's a dictator, why doesn't he just cancel the election? Like, I hope you understand what I mean. Dictators are going to be dictators. This president is allowing himself to be ridiculed constantly. Who's supposed to... This is not something that happens in dictatorships. I hope you understand what I mean. This is so off the rails. The Senate is not going to remove Trump. No. They're not going to remove Trump because they believe that they will be hurt politically if they did remove Trump. But understand what that means. That means that the people who they want to vote for them, meaning the public that is filling stadiums, going to see Trump, would punish them. That means that he still has popular support within the context of the country. No, I don't like it. The guy's a flagrant liar. And it blows me away that this flagrant liar would get the support. But I got to be honest, I think part of that support, yes, some of these people are racist. Not all of them. Some of these people are sick and tired of the political system the way it is and wants to see the shit burnt down. And I have to be honest, I can't fault them for that. How can I fault them for that? Yes, I would prefer you find somebody who's not a flagrant liar, because there are certain problems with flagrant liars in the context of the way the governmental system works. Oh, we're going to Syria in order to fight ISIS. Yes, we're going to be fighting ISIS. We're not going to be fighting this side. We're not trying to take a side down. We're just fighting ISIS. Yeah, we're going to Libya to stop Gaddafi from, killing those people. And then you find in the New York Times that Obama has spent $1 billion in Syria and Libya funding terrorists. It seems that the people who Gaddafi might have been going after were the terrorists that we were supporting. And then we use that, people we supported, to turn around to do airstrikes. Some lies are bigger than others. Some lies are bigger than others, but those are not lies that the Democratic Party care about. Those are not lies that our political system care about. This piddly shit. Understand this, JT. They're trying to remove Trump before the end of the term to expose the deep state. It's do or die for them. Venture down the rabbit hole. Trump is not fighting no fucking deep state. I hate to tell you this. And I know there's going to be some Trump supporters out there, and this may blow their mind. You've been had. You have been had. Every bit as much as lefties was had with the hope and rhetoric shit with Obama. You have been had. Your guy has been a flagrant liar, and he has worked against your interests for the entire time he has been in office. David Chappelle has a joke was like, oh, you poor, dumb white, whatever. He was like, he's working for me, he's not working for you. And his point was, he's helping me because I'm rich. You're not. He's fucking you over, even though you're giving him your support. That was his point. And that, to some degree, is true. I understand he may be an ogre. I understand the Democratic Party sucks. I understand that, there's this Godzilla to fight King Kong type stuff. But you can't lose sight of the reality of this. Trump is fucking horrible. Now, the catch becomes, do I blame people for saying, I am sick and tired of the political space not being responsive to my needs? And in some degree, even being angered by that, since you're still paying your hard-earned taxes for that same political space that is not catering to your needs, but catering to the interests of the people who don't need that at all. So I guess my point is there's a righteous indignation that comes along with people who support Trump in some respects. But don't get it twisted. He's not fighting nothing. He's only out for himself. And at this point, he's looking purely from the standpoint of political survival. This drain the swamp. Trump has been in office for 3 years now. If Trump wanted to release that information, Trump could have released whatever he wanted. He's the president of the United States. They hate him. They're impeaching him anyway. So what does it matter if he was going to release this or release that? He's not working for your benefit. I'm sorry. I know some people believe that, but I have no idea why. I honestly, God's honest truth, I have no idea why. But the Republican Senate won't vote him out, right? Maybe Bloomberg will buy some Republican votes. No, they're not going to vote him out. They're not going to vote him out. They wouldn't dare vote him out. Have you seen his popularity? They have gone after him legitimately in some cases, but in some cases not. But 3 years, the entire time, it has not let up. And despite that, he's still polling relatively close to the various Democrats in the race. And depending on the Democrat, I am telling you, Biden is going to get his clock cleaned. I don't know how many Democrats watch Trump's rallies, like where he engages the audience and all this other stuff. And I would imagine it's kind of difficult to do, and it is. But there's segments of that rally, I have to be honest, that are fucking hilarious. And when he's talking about Hunter Biden, talking about wearing the t-shirt, where's Hunter? And, the guys at a strip club doing coke. And just so happens, he's right. Just so happens he's right. And the audience is eating out of the palm of his hand, meaning he's being a showman to the hilt. He's been a showman to the hilt. And he's using that to attack and ridicule Biden. And all of these, we don't want to hit Joe Biden too hard. I hate to tell you this, that is not going to be the case when you get into the general election. You better choose right. Choose right. I strongly suggest to you that part of the reason they're having this is what Additive Shifts said. We can't take the opportunity that the public chooses Trump again over our candidate. But how does that sit with you? Even if you hate Trump, how does that sit with you? With one of the candidates saying, we know better, and we're going to make a choice to prevent you from making a choice on a person who you might actually like. I'm sorry, that is fucking problematic. I don't know why this is not problematic. Like, say for the moment you're impeaching him, but you don't say that. Okay, fair enough. But Schiff needed to explain why they couldn't wait this year. Meaning, Schiff needed to make it clear to people, all right, we need to come up with an explanation for why we don't just have the election, which is going to take place at the end of the year anyway. Hey, there was Trump and Russia stuff. Why don't we just allude to the fact that we don't know if Trump is going to be working with the Russians? Yeah, that works. Let's do that. And they come up with that weird explanation that every dictator on the planet could say shit like that. We're going to get rid of the Reichstag because, we can't take the chance that our enemies are going to, fuck around or something. So yeah, we got to do that for your health, for your own safety. That's amazing. I can't believe he said that. Like, that's profound. I can't believe he said that. That's mind-blowing. Why do you think they're trying so hard to defending Burisma, Hunter, and Joe? Why are they censoring the name of the whistleblower? The Democratic Party is going to try to censor that stuff because they don't want Joe Biden talked about. They still think Joe Biden is going to be the front runner. For the longest time, they might not have necessarily thought he was inevitable, but they damn sure thought he was going to win. That may be different now. David Schuster made the point that Democrats are freaking out, saying his sources are saying they're like losing their shit. They're terrified that Sanders could win. But up to this point, in their heads, Biden is their guy. Not just Biden is their guy. The fact that they sit on the impeachment articles hold them up until the moment that Sanders needs to be in Iowa gets across how fucked up. Like, I don't believe for a moment that that's random. It is unprecedented for them to do that. But this is kind of my point. They're using the governmental edifice, screaming that the guy's a dictator, while they're doing things, using that system itself for their own political ends, almost as a political instrument, to take out their competition, be it Sanders or be it Trump. Make me believe I'm wrong on that. Nancy Pelosi said on that. She said she didn't have to sit on that. She said on that. And not just didn't have to sit on that. Waited until the last moment where Sanders needed to be in Iowa. Pelosi, Schumer, both were caught at anti-Sanders meetings and trying to figure out how to stop Sanders. And it just so happened that Nancy Pelosi acquiesced to what AOC and Elizabeth Warren, AOC in this case Sanders surrogate, and Warren, who's just opportunistic, were trying to accomplish in regards to trying to scam votes. AOC wasn't. She was going for Trump for a different reason, but Warren was trying to scam votes. They think that's their guy. And so they're trying to protect their guy. I think it's that straightforward. The Burisma thing, all of that stuff. The Democratic Party is trying to cover its ass for something that was just blatant, outright corruption. Fact of the matter is, if Hunter Biden, working at Burisma, was indeed corrupt, then by definition, he's trading off of Joe Biden's name. The moment that you bring up Burisma, it's like whether Joe Biden was allowing his family to trade off of his name or whether Joe Biden was just actively corrupt. Both of those things amount to the same thing to me, and I would imagine it amounts to the same thing to a lot of the public. Meaning, in an election with Trump, where Sanders could call him corrupt, Joe Biden can't touch that rail at all. You could say corrupt, and he is going to eat you alive. And at the very least, neuter any argument you're going to make from the standpoint of corruption. People think Biden is electable, and I am telling you, he is the weakest candidate. Like, think of the baggage that he has with Social Security. Donald Trump is going to be like, I made sure nothing happened to Social Security, but can you really trust Joe with this? I mean, Joe's trying to cut it. And he's going to have hundreds of millions of dollars to send ads all across the United States with Joe Biden trying to cut Social Security. The reality of it is, Trump is the one who's going to cut Social Security. But do you think that level of hypocrisy or that level of a lie would matter to Trump? Nope, one iota. And at the very least, Joe Biden is on camera on multiple accounts, not just talking about cutting it, lying about it. I'm sorry, he is a weak candidate. People's perception of him is just their perception of him from the standpoint of how he lines up with what Trump can hit him with versus what Joe can muster. Hillary 2.0. Hillary 2.0. And not even as adept as Hillary. All right. I'm going to end this because it's getting late and this video has gone dramatically long. Jay Wood, this impeachment solidifies war crimes are okay. Going after the powerful are no go. Right. And everyone supports the impeachment, pushing that narrative. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Exactly. Like the moment, think of all of the shit that Trump was doing from the standpoint of the foreign policy stuff, the pressuring Iran, the pulling out the JCPOA, all that stuff. But that's not the stuff they fight him on. Him going out, I'm stealing the oil. Yeah, they don't even, that's not even that big of a deal for them. Him literally, for the most part, stealing oil in somebody else's countries. Their issue with Trump was that he wanted to pull out, of the Middle East, at which point everybody had the collective bitch fit. It's like, we're okay with you bombing Yemen. We're okay with you stealing oil in Syria. And then you have this other weird quirk that Donald Trump comes out and says Obama was lying to the public. Obama was actually trying to knock down the Assad government. That's actually true. Democrats don't care about that either. That's their guy. They didn't care about the whistleblowers when Obama was putting those people in prison. They damn sure didn't care about anything that Obama was doing either in Yemen, in Libya, or Syria. War crimes. Absolute war crimes. Tell me, is there something in our Constitution that allows the president to literally pay terrorists in order to take down a government? I'm unaware of that. And yet, year after year after year, our presidents have been doing that, belligerently so. But in the old days, they used to have the sense enough, or at the very least, believe that the public cared about how horrible that is, that they wouldn't say that. And then during the time of Obama and Bush and so forth, that became less so. It became kind of more clear that, yes, your government is paying terrorists to knock down the government. Now, if you ask Jake Tapper that, Jake Tapper is going to say the government says it's not doing that. So, what am I? What do you think I am, a newsman? What do you think I'm a newsman? You think I'm here to tell you the truth? Just fucking media. Yeah, I've grown sick of those places. Xavier Foster, learn about the whistleblowers, a history and lies. Or is that ties? History and ties. Whistleblowers usually have very difficult lives. And in this very particular case, those very difficult lives are not what, let's say, the Democratic Party's whistleblowers were living. I've never seen a situation where all of these people kind of just fly around these spooks. Pelosi and John Kerry have connections to Burisma too. That's right. You're right, Fred. You're absolutely right. It's like John Kerry's like nephew or something, some family member. Ryan Grimm actually went through that and was explaining the connections between them. Yeah. The Praetorian Guard wants to depose the commander-in-chief. The Republic is crumbling. Song 4K, yeah. That's what it looks like, doesn't it? That's exactly what it looks like. But he's a dictator. He's a dictator. The president gets impeached, but the president's a dictator. He didn't have dictatorial powers, but he's a dictator. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.